10 to 8. Now, we're going to speak in a moment to the actor Colin McFarlane, who has revealed he's being treated for prostate cancer 9 months after his brother was diagnosed.
The Dark Knight star says he began going for regular checkups about being told of the importance of regular testing.
Now, this comes as new research shows a large number of black men are unaware that their ethnicity puts them at double the risk of the disease. We've got some fascinating figures for you.
Yeah, the numbers are amazing, actually. According to the charity Prostate Cancer UK, 1 in 4 black men will develop the disease over their lifetime.
The cancer is the most common in men, and there are 52,000 new cases diagnosed every year.
Research by the charity also reveals that more than half of black men don't know where the prostate is, and 70% don't know that ethnicity is a major risk factor. Well, Colin joins us now, along with Chiara De Bias from Prostate Cancer UK. Morning.
Good morning.
Hi, Colin. How are you?
I'm good. I mean, technically, actually, fortunately, I'm not being treated. So a friend of mine, John Shrapnel, an actor, he was diagnosed in 2004, and he said to me back then, you need to take responsibility for prostate cancer. There's no screening program, so you need to go and get blood tests from your doctor. So I've been doing that for about 8 years, and then about 3 years ago, they said, your PSA number is a little high. Yeah, it has to be under 3.5 for the men out there. So if it gets a bit above that, they kind of go, might have to look at something. I said, do we need to do anything? I said, no, we'll just keep an eye on it. And then about a year and a half later, they said, we might need to do an MRI just to have a look because the number's gone a bit higher. So we did the MRI. They went, little area of concern. There's a 30% chance it might be cancer. And you kind of go, OK, what does that mean? He said, well, let's just do the biopsy and we'll have a look. So they did a biopsy, they took some samples. And fortunately, he said, we couldn't have caught it any earlier. You've been caught really early, so you don't require treatment. You don't have any symptoms. So all we will do is do a PSA blood test, simple blood test, once every 3 months, and we'll do an MRI once a year. And I said, what's the likelihood of treatment? He said, at this point, you're probably 10 to 15 years away from any treatment, and you may not need it at all. So basically, to the men out there listening today, I just want to say, please do what I did and do your regular blood tests, because if you do a PSA test every year, you'll be as lucky as I've been in that you catch it early, and that's the key. And, of course, there are no symptoms in the early stages. So, of course, a lot of men, I've been doing my own personal research, just talking to men and asking them what they know. A lot of them don't have any awareness of this, and they assume, I'll go to the doctor when I've got pain. I don't really want to bother the doctor, so I'll wait till something's hurting. Well, sadly, with prostate cancer, when you have no symptoms, that's the best chance of actually curing it and treating it. So if you wait till you've got pain, which is often back pain, that actually means it's probably started to spread, and that's not good. So men over 50, if you're white, men over 45, if you're black, you need to go and get a simple PSA blood test. But what's put a lot of men off is there was a lot of messaging around the digital rectal examination, which is the finger up the bum, which most men will run the other way from, but also I found that GPs weren't that keen on doing it. And so then what you find is that men don't go to the doctor at all. And then what I've found recently, since I've been diagnosed and telling lots of men about it, they've been to GPs and GPs have said, you don't need a blood test. And I'm like, what? We're doing a campaign about this. You absolutely do. And so I said to my urology specialist at St Bart's, why are GPs turning men away? And they said, because from about 10 years ago, PSA used to be on its own, not entirely reliable. But he said what they don't realise is the game has changed, but in a good way for men, in that the MRI technology has improved so much that MRI in tandem with a PSA blood test is incredibly accurate. And then, if they're still not sure, you have the biopsy. So the 3-step approach is now, he said that started about 10 years ago. Some GPs are in the old way of thinking of, oh, PSAs aren't reliable. They are reliable when used in tandem with the other
So,
things.
Chiara, if somebody is watching this morning, they're over the age of 50, and a bloke says, I never have one of these tests, I think I should get a test, and they go to their GP and say, I'd like a test. What are their chances of getting a test?
Well, all men in the UK are eligible for a free PSA blood test. But actually, the big message today is to go to the Prostate Cancer UK website to do the risk checker. Because, as Colin's just beautifully outlined, there are some quirks about prostate cancer, the fact that it starts without symptoms. But today, the really important message is for black men over 45, because, as you said from this survey, 80% of the black men that we spoke to didn't realise that their ethnicity put them in that incredibly high-risk category. And then when they realise that, 2/3 of them, quite understandably, assume that they'd be invited to have that PSA blood test. So the really important message is what we want to do is separate fact from fiction. We want to make it really simple for men to understand what their risk is. And we've talked about black men over 45, but also importantly, men with a family history of prostate cancer are 2.5 times more likely to get prostate cancer as well. So these are the men that we really want to do the risk checker. It's very simple. It just takes 30 seconds to do. And importantly, we'll then give you all the information you need about the PSA blood test. Because, again, as Colin said, it's not perfect. It's not a test for prostate cancer, but it is very much the first step in that prostate cancer pathway so that we can rule something in, rule it out. And again, we don't be worrying about the rectal examinations. These days, men are far more likely to go straight for
and also,
an MRI scan.
As my specialist was saying, he does seminars for GPs to educate them, to say, don't turn men away. So he's having to run seminars, so that tells you how prevalent this is. And the other message I wanted just to convey to people listening is that because men are so reluctant to go to the doctor, this is a campaign for Father's Day. There's a great message for fathers out there. If they have daughters, if you have a daughter, be aware that if you have prostate cancer and you have a daughter, she is at higher risk of ovarian and breast cancer. So if men won't do it for themselves, do it for their daughters. That's really important.
And another thing that I think is quite important is, you know, you talk about actually it can be really difficult to get a test. And with any type of cancer screening, there is a huge level of anxiety, isn't there, involved in it. But what you're describing is something that shouldn't be scary to go through.
No. It's a simple blood test, 30 seconds. And it's a flag. It's the only flag we've really got. Now, of course, women, as you know only too well, have this journey with breast cancer screening, cervical cancer screening. So there is an assumption by a lot of men that they will be invited for a screening if they're at risk. You won't be. It's really down to the man. So all men listening out there need to know, as we've said before, over 50, get checked if you're white, over 45 if you're black. And as we were just saying about the risk checker, if you don't want to go straight to the doctor, you just anonymously go to the website, you put in your age, your family history of cancer, your ethnicity, and information will come up and advise you to then go to your doctor if necessary.
Are we going to get a screening programme, a national screening programme at some point? Is that on the horizon?
They're working.
We hope so. That's the ultimate aim, of course. And at Prostate Cancer UK, we strongly believe that there is enough evidence to support a screening programme for black men over 45
Absolutely.
and for men with a family history. And in fact, they're investigating that and looking at the research this year. So we hope that we're at least one step closer to getting a screening programme for these very high-risk men. But it really does come down to understanding that men, that they have a prostate, that it can get cancer, and that it's all about the risk of getting it